Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today and welcome in this public consultation on the draft department circulars on the guidelines on energy certificates and guidelines on the virtual power purchase agreements. Before we proceed, let us sing the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by a prayer.
Ayaw kasi si Rainier.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ayaw magiliw, hangos ng sinanganan, hanap ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinilang, tuya ka ng magiting, sa manlupi, di ka masisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simulan, sa langit mong mahal, magdilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisag ng matawat mo'y tagumpay na nanginginig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magiging, lupa na ang
Glory to you, Almighty, for gathering us today. Give us the fortitude to conquer life's challenges so we can excel and be upright in everything that we do. Guide us to be united in diversity, that we may continue to serve and love one another. Amen.
Again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is King Anthony Ting of the Renewable Energy Management Bureau, and I am your moderator for today. As for the House rules, the microphone and camera functions are disabled for all participants. Use the Q&A to submit your concerns or questions in the following format: name, affiliation, question, or clarification. Please use the raise hand button if you wish to speak and elaborate your question. Wait for the moderator to acknowledge and enable your microphone, and kindly state your full name and your company or affiliation. To formally open today's activity, and on behalf of Undersecretary Yusek Maylin C. Kapongkol, please let us all welcome our Division Chief, Ms. Lisa V. Pangilinan, for her message.
We sincerely apologize. The Honorable Undersecretary will not be able to attend today due to an equally important commitment that requires her present. Allow me to read her opening remarks. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Secretary Sharon Isgarin, I am honored to welcome all of you to this public consultation on the draft Department Circulars on Energy Certificates and Virtual Power Purchase Agreements. Your presence reflects your commitment to supporting the government's initiatives, particularly the continuous improvement of the country's energy sector. Thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. The Philippines has joined the global call for climate action, and our commitment was solidified through the submission of our nationally determined contribution, or the NDC targets, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the UNFCCC. The urgency of this call is undeniable, which is why the Department of Energy view this as an opportune time to institutionalize initiatives aimed at mitigating the effects of climate change. One such initiative is the implementation of a policy on energy certificates. The draft guidelines on energy certificates outlines the policy framework for the attribution and use of energy certificates from mitigation and adoption strategies in the energy sector. Its main objective is to create a transparent, credible system that helps the government meet its international climate commitments, particularly under the Paris Agreement, while promoting environmental sustainability and economic resilience. The draft guidelines also provides the different classifications of energy certificates. Further, the DOE noted that renewable energy certificates, as a company's compliance to clean energy targets, can be a potential source of financing for renewable energy projects. Hence, the draft policy and virtual power purchase agreements, or the VPPs. The virtual power purchase agreement is a private contract for the sale of voluntary risks between a seller who generates or will generate power from a VPPA project and the buyer, who agrees to purchase the voluntary RECs at a fixed or variable price. The VPPAs are recognized as valid agreements for securing financing with guaranteed payments for RECs serving as financial guarantees for the seller. The specifics of the two draft policies will be discussed in detail as we go on this afternoon's public consultation. Again, thank you and we look forward to engaging in a meaningful and productive discussion. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang renewable energy. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you, Ma'am Lisa. To present the draft department circular on the guidelines on energy certificates, we have our attorney Fillmore C. Amor of the Renewable Energy Legal Services Division.
Good morning to everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. I'll be presenting the draft energy certificates policy. As a preliminary remark, we would like to apologize for any confusion on the version uploaded on the DOE website. We received comments from our stakeholders that the draft energy certificates policy is not in harmony with the draft carbon certificates policy that was subjected to public consultation several weeks ago. As by way of explanation, let me just say that the carbon credits policy, the energy certificates policy, the virtual power purchase agreement policy, and the amendment to the RPS on-grid rules were crafted alongside each other. At some point, REMB discontinued or put on hold the drafting of the energy certificates policy based on policy considerations for the RECs. Meanwhile, the crafting of the carbon certificates policy continued and underwent public consultation. Hence, there was the version posted on the DOE website for the energy certificates policy and the VPPA was at the time the version as of the date when the discussions were suspended. So we apologize for that. We will ensure that all issuances of the DOE are aligned with each other. Now, if I may proceed, for the recitals, let me just highlight some of these. So the NREP, the fourth whereas clause, under the NREP, the country has a 35% RE target has a target of 35% RE share in the power generation mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040. Section 6 of the RE Act mandates all stakeholders in the electric power industry to contribute to the growth of our industry in the country by directing the NREB to set the minimum percentage of generation from eligible RE resources and for NREB to determine to which sector the RPS shall be imposed on a per grid basis. Section 8 of the RE Act mandates the establishment of a renewable energy market to facilitate compliance with the RPS minimum requirements. Section 6 and 8 of the RE Act, by virtue of Section 6 and 8 of the RE Act, the DOE issued Department Circular Number DC 2017-12-0015, titled Promulgating the Rules and Guidelines Governing the Establishment of the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards in On-Grid Areas, or the RPS rules, which provides, among others, that RPS mandated participants shall use renewable energy certificates, or RECs, to comply with the respective minimum annual RPS requirements, that a REM shall be established, the basis for issuance of RECs, and that a REC shall represent all renewable and environmental attributes from 1 megawatt hour of electricity generation sourced from facilities that utilize RE resources or RE technology. In 2024, the DOE issued DC 2024-12-0031 titled Declaration of the Full Commercial Operations of the REM, which allows for trading of RECs in the REM. RECs provides a potential source of financing for RE projects as a means for complying with the voluntary targets such as RE100 and net zero targets. The Philippines is a signatory of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and is committed to addressing the urgent need of climate change and is actively participating in the global effort to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, with an aim to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, in line with the Paris Agreement. The Philippines has committed to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by 75% by 2030, as outlined in its nationally determined contribution, while also pursuing sustainable development pathways that promote climate resilience, enhance energy security, and foster economic growth. Executive Order number 174 was issued and signed on November 2014, institutionalizing the Philippine Greenhouse Gas Inventory Management and Reporting System. The implementation of the NDC of the Philippines is based on sector-specific mitigation activities and adaptation measures, and is coordinated through the NDC Technical Working Group established in 2016. The DOE is designated as the lead agency for the energy. Section 1, Purpose. This circular sets forth the rules and guidelines on the generation, classification, uses, and trading of energy certificates. Section 2, Definitions. I would like to note that the definitions contained in this draft still reflect those as of last version, but we will make it consistent with the carbon credits policy. Additionality principle refers to a principle of carbon credits that says that the mitigation activity is additional if it would not have occurred without the prospect of selling the carbon credits from the mitigation activity. Eligible mitigation activity refers to an activity in the energy sector that significantly reduces greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, or energy consumption through the adoption of energy efficiency and conservation technologies. Carbon Credit Certificate, or CCC, refers to a tradable certificate representing 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent of GHG emissions reduced or removed from the atmosphere generated by mitigation activities under Article 6, verified as real and additional by independent third-party auditors using relevant carbon crediting standards. Renewable Energy Certificate or REC. The first was certificate issued by the RE Registrar to electric power industry participants, showing the energy sourced, produced, and sold or used, and classified as either compliance renewable energy certificate or voluntary renewable energy certificate under Section 6 of this circular. The REC shall represent all renewable and environmental attributes from 1 megawatt hour of electricity generation. Section 3, Statement of Policy. This circular defines the general policy framework and guidelines in the attribution and utilization of energy certificates derived from mitigation and adaptation strategies in the energy sector. Section 4, Objectives. This circular is intended to provide clear, transparent, and credible system to facilitate the government's compliance with obligations under the Paris Agreement and other international cooperation on climate change, advancing both government environmental sustainability and economic resilience through transition to renewable energy, energy efficiency, and use of clean energy in the electric power industry. Section 5, Energy Certificates Framework. To achieve the objectives set forth in this circular, the rules, guidelines, and other issuances of the DOE and other concerned government and non-government entities shall align with the framework on energy certificates set forth in this circular and other issuances related thereto. Section 6, Kinds of Energy Certificates. Energy certificates shall be classified as follows. First, renewable energy certificates or RECs, which can either be compliance RECs, which represent 1 megawatt hour of generation of electricity from eligible RE facilities as defined under the RPS rules or any amendment thereto. Compliance RECs are utilized by mandated participants as defined under the RPS rules for compliance with RPS requirements under the RE Act, or the second kind of RECs, voluntary RECs, which represent 1 megawatt hour of generation of electricity from RE resources. Voluntary RECs may be utilized by RE generation companies or facilities as additional source of revenue. Note the difference between compliance RECs and voluntary RECs in reference to the eligible RE facilities. An energy certificate may also be a carbon credit certificate or CCCs, which represent the reduction of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent from the atmosphere through an eligible mitigation activity. It can either be utilized to comply with specific regulatory regimes or additional source of revenue for their environmental attributes. Section 7, Generation of Energy Certificates. Energy certificates shall be generated depending on the activity subject to 7.3 below. Eligible mitigation activities shall generate CCCs subject to the carbon credits policy to be issued by the DOE. RE development shall generate RECs. Next, RE development not falling under the compliance REC market may generate CCCs if deemed to have qualified for CCCs under applicable laws, rules, guidelines, and standards. The owner of the RE facility elects to generate CCCs from the activity and gives notice thereof pursuant to the procedure set forth in the carbon credits policy. We have to clarify this with our planning bureau on how the procedure on the election on whether the project will generate CCCs or energy certificates will be done. Section 8, attribution of energy certificates. Except as otherwise provided in other DOE policies and the rules and regulations, energy certificates shall be attributed as follows. For RECs, compliance RECs. A compliance REC shall be attributed to a mandated participant in accordance with DC 2017-12-0015 or the RPS rules for on-grid areas as may be amended. In the case of voluntary RECs shall be attributed to the owner or operator of an RE facility. CCCs, on the other hand, shall be attributed to a project proponent, developer, or owner in accordance with a circular to be issued by the DOE. If I recall correctly, the current draft carbon credits policy does not yet contain the procedure for the attribution. Okay, so there is also, I repeat, CCCs shall be attributed to a project proponent, developer, or owner in accordance with the carbon credits policy to be issued by the DOE. Section 9, unbundling of voluntary renewable energy certificates from electricity. Except as otherwise provided in the RPS on-grid rules as may be amended, voluntary RECs generated after establishment of the voluntary RE market shall be unbundled from the electricity which generated it. Section 10, characteristics of energy certificates. 1. Additionality. Eligible mitigation activities intended to generate CCCs shall be subject to the additionality principle, while those intended to generate compliance and voluntary RECs shall not be subject to such principle. Transferability. Compliance and voluntary RECs shall be traded and transferred through the REM or voluntary REM respectively within the banking period unless surrendered or retired. CCCs shall be traded and transferred in accordance with the carbon credits policy. Banking period. Energy certificates may be banked within the period prescribed under the applicable rules and regulations. Energy certificates shall not be traded or transferred after the expiration of such banking period, if any. Registry. There shall be only one registry for compliance and voluntary RECs. There shall be only one registry for CCCs. The registries shall ensure compliance with Section 10.8 of this circular. Surrender and retirement. Pursuant to the applicable market rules, the owner may surrender the compliance and voluntary RECs to the RE registrar, who shall retire the surrendered compliance and voluntary RECs. CCCs shall be surrendered or retired in accordance with the carbon credits policy. Regulations. Consistent with the RE Act, the ERC shall set the price cap and price determination methodology for compliance REC, while the price of voluntary RECs and CCCs, if applicable, shall not be subject to ERC regulation. Number 7, accounting, validation, and auditing. The accounting, validation, and auditing of energy certificates shall be based on the applicable standards and policies set by the DOE and other relevant government agencies, provided that the accounting, validation, and auditing of CCCs shall be in accordance with provided that the accounting, validation, and auditing of CCCs shall be in accordance with international certificates. Each energy certificate shall have a unique serial number and other details necessary for tracking and verification of all transactions and other actions related thereto. Compliance recs. Compliance recs shall be traded in the REM in accordance with the REM rules as amended. Voluntary recs, on the other hand, shall be traded in the voluntary REM in accordance with the department circular to be issued by the DOE. For CCCs, CCCs shall be traded domestically or internationally in accordance following the RPS rules for on-grid areas, RPS rules for off-grid areas, the REM rules, monitor compliance of participants in energy certificate markets, establish a voluntary REM and a CCC market, formulate or adopt methodologies for the valuation of energy certificates. Implementation of this circular. Section 13, responsibilities of ERC. The ERC shall issue and or amend the relevant rules and regulations for the proper implementation. Sorry, let me repeat. ERC shall issue and or amend the relevant rules and regulations for the proper implementation of this circular. Study and design mechanisms to lower electricity rates by taking into account the value of energy certificates and exercise any market monitoring or supervision functions in accordance with the policies issued by the DOE. The ERC shall not regulate the price of energy certificates. Section 14, regulatory support. Not later than 1 year from the effectivity of this circular, the DOE shall issue the relevant guidelines, rules, and regulations needed for the proper implementation of this circular. Section 15, 16, and 17 provides for the separability, repealing, and effectivity clauses. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Attorney Fiel. So to serve as our panelists, we have Yusek Maylin Sikapongkol, our director, Attorney Marisa P. Possible to remove the classifications on of energy certificates, RECs, and CCCs to allow flexibility for energy participants. Alternatively, if the classification is retained, may RECs and CCCs be converted into one another.
So just a these have been proposed to our REMBI principals and subsequently cleared. Neither removal nor conversion is possible. Conversion of RECs to CCCs and vice versa would complicate the framework. Not all activities in the energy sector can generate RECs, as the latter is measured by electricity generated and delivered. The simpler option, which is adopted in this DC, is for the owner or operator of the RE facility to choose the kind of energy certificate that will be generated by the activity. If you recall, there is a provision in the draft circular, I think it's 7.3. Can you show that? 7.3, if I may read. RE development, so the general rule is energy certificates shall be generated depending on the activity, subject to section 7.3 below. So if under the carbon credits policy, the activity is an eligible mitigation activity and they must generate carbon credit certificates, but is not eligible to generate RECs, that activity will automatically generate institutes. The special case is where an eligible mitigation activity is RE development, because in that case, it can either generate CCCs or RECs. Section 7.3 provides RE development not falling under the compliance REC market may generate CCCs if deemed to have qualified for CCCs under applicable laws, rules, guidelines, and standards. The owner of the RE facility elects to generate CCCs from the activity. That election is simpler than having a framework that allows conversion of energy certificates from one form to another. The tracking would be too complicated, the registry, the serial numbering, etc. It would be too difficult to keep track of. Next question.
Thank you, Attorney Fiel.
I,
On section 7.3 of the draft DC, can RE developers choose which type of energy certificate to generate? If so, will the choice be permanent or can it be changed within a prescribed period of compliance year?
Okay. The choice lies with the owner of the RE facility. The choice, we have yet to come up with an amendment to the RPS on-grid rules. The initial policy direction is the choice will be permanent as to the RECs generated. For instance, an RE facility generates 1 megawatt hour and a REC, an RE certificate is issued. The choice binds the owner of the RE facility because there is no conversion. So until the banking period lapses, the RE developer is bound by its election. In the case of an RE developer electing to generate CCCs from an RE project that is considered an eligible mitigation activity, we will clarify that with our planning bureau on the permanence of the election, or if there is an option for the RE developer to change the kind of energy certificate that will be generated. For instance, we have to clarify, is it possible for the RE developer to say, for the first 5 years of commercial operations, the energy certificates that will be generated by my RE facility are only carbon credit certificates. For succeeding years, in the 6th year up to end of useful life, all energy certificates will be in the form of RECs. So far as I can recall, this is not yet provided for in the carbon credits policy. My reading of it is it only provides the general framework, so the details such as election on the kind of energy certificate and the permanence or the ability to change the choice is yet to be provided in a separate issuance.
Maganda.
See,
Yes, sir.
go ahead, Sergio.
Attorney Phil, if I may add, In cases for RE power projects that have existing power supply agreements, their option may be limited to compliance regs because that will be used for the host distribution utility.
Yeah.
For their compliance with their RPS requirements.
Thank you, Sir John. The current policy of the DOE is to, as mandated under the RE Act, is to prioritize RPS compliance so that when an RE project is covered by a power supply agreement with a mandated participant, the energy certificate that will be generated from electricity supplied under the power supply agreement will automatically be a compliance reg.
Thank you, Attorney and Engineer Jojo. Next question, please. On Section 8.2.1, should we wait for the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to issue its policy on carbon credits before proceeding?
No. Based on the EO number 174, the DOE is mandated to, as the GHG inventory. Let me go back to the recital. DOE is designated as the lead agency for the energy sector's GHG inventory by virtue of Section 3 of EO number 174 and is in charge of coordinating the energy sector's NDC. We understand that the DENR is the nationally designated authority under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So, in that context, the DOE's policies relating to carbon credits will suffice for the energy sector. If I recall correctly, the carbon credits policy says the carbon credits policy will govern the generation, attribution, etc. of carbon credits until the DNR issues a general framework on carbon credits under the Paris Agreement. But until then, the issuances of the DOE suffice as basis for the generation of carbon credits and other energy certificates. Next.
Thank you. Next question is on Section 5. Energy certificates should not be exhaustive. The types listed in the circular may be illustrative only. Should other certificates such as energy transition credits also be recognized?
Parang wala siya. Okay. The DOE may supplement the kinds of energy certificates recognized under this circular upon the recommendation of the nationally designated authority under the Paris Agreement or from stakeholders in the energy sector.
Next, please. On Section 10.4, could you...
Sorry.
Yes.
Thanks to Sir Clarence, our planning bureau clarified, Sir Clarence clarified that transition credit is a type of carbon credit. Thank you, Sir Clarence.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so next is on section 10.4. Could you clarify why there is a single registry but two distinct markets?
Two distinct markets for
I think for the
Compliance
Rex and the CCCs.
does that mean for this and Rex only, or for energy certificates on the one for Rex on the one hand and CCCs?
On the other hand, yes. Yes, attorney. I think the single registry refers to on the portion of 10.4, it says that there is single registry. There shall be only one registry for CCCs and one registry for the compliance and voluntary recs.
These I think we had to discuss this with our planning bureau also.
Yeah.
For
Yusek Maidi.
Yes, you say?
let's see, May, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think we have to clarify this because maybe just to reconcile no with the initial carbon credit policy that was subjected. So we will clarify this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek and the attorney. Next question, please. So on section 6.1, does this provision mean that all RE plants, including those commissioned before the effectivity of the RE Act, may participate in the voluntary market?
If you recall, the voluntary rec does not require the RE facility to be eligible under the RPS rules. So our understanding is, even if it is a legacy project, it can participate in the voluntary market for trading of voluntary rec.
Okay. Thank you, attorney. Next question. I think this question from the Q&A na po.
Before that,
I guess
let me go through the definitions just to get it over with. So, for consistency with EPPD's draft carbon credits policy, the definition and additionality principle will be revised as follows. Additionality principle, a principle which declares that a mitigation activity may generate CCCs only if the activity is primarily undertaken for its mitigation outcomes and would not have occurred in the absence of benefits, monetary or otherwise, from such CCCs, and whose implementation have demonstrated that the activity exceeds current legal or regulatory requirements. Next, carbon credit certificates will be, the carbon credit certificate definition will be defined as follows. Carbon credit certificate refers to a tradable certificate representing 1 ton of carbon credit equivalent, 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent of GHG emissions reduced or removed from the atmosphere through the implementation of a mitigation activity defined in Section 5, verified as real and additional by accredited independent third-party entities using internationally accepted standards and methodologies. CCCs shall be referred to as internationally transferred mitigation outcomes or ITMOs when they are authorized for transfer to another country in accordance with the rule under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney, for laying down the definitions. And let's proceed to the question, please. So from the Q&A, section 10.6 and from the Energy Regulatory Commission, may we clarify on the instances being considered by the DOE for the price of voluntary RECs not being subjected to ERC regulation, since section 13.3 clearly provides that ERC shall not regulate the price of RECs whether compliance or voluntary. Will the participants under the voluntary market pay also the market transaction fee?
Section 13. So first, clarificatory. The statement, the last sentence of section 13.3 should be limited to voluntary RECs and CCCs, if applicable. Just to be consistent with section 10.6 of the draft circular.
Okay.
So for the instances considered by the DOE for the price of the counterparty in any PSA, bilateral contract, or any other market agreement applying the RPS audio tool. If the REC generated is a voluntary REC, all voluntary RECs, regardless of the circumstances under which it is generated, under the current policy, is not subject to ERC regulation. So all voluntary RECs will not be subject to ERC regulation. There are no instances when a voluntary REC may be subject to ERC regulation. At least that is the current policy direction. Will the participants under the voluntary market pay also the market transaction fee? Let us clarify that when we come up with a circular establishing the voluntary RE market. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fiel. Next question, please. So what is the basis of categorizing an RE resource as RPS or voluntary? Can we have the flexibility for the classification of our contracted capacity, whether it can generate RPS, VREX, or CCC? I think he refers to compliance REX, voluntary REX, and CCC. And can we separate the capacity of a single facility into the three kinds of certificates, making sure that they are divided and apportioned properly to avoid double counting or dipping?
Okay. First, what is the basis of categorizing an RE resource? We have a difficulty understanding the first question because
Attorney Fiel.
first, sige ma'am, go ahead please.
Sige, ako na lang muna. I'll answer first on the bullet one. Can we have flexibility for the classification of our contracted capacity, whether it can generate RPS, voluntary RECs, and CCC? Remember, these three requirements or certificate, actually for the RPS, it's REC. And under the RE law, it says that, and the IRR issued by the DOE, the RPS are those the RECs is generated when the when the RE installation or commercial operation was done or started from the effectivity of the Renewable Energy Act. So it can generate RECs generally. Now, the RPS or the mandatory or the compliance REC is generated out of the compliance by a mandated participants to the renewable portfolio standards. For example, our our policy on the RPS requires distribution utilities, load-serving entities such as retail electricity supplier and generators with directly connected customer as mandated participants. So they are required to submit the equivalent minimum RPS requirement, which is in the form of renewable energy certificate. Now, for the BREX, it refers to the renewable energy certificate, which derived from the energy generated by the voluntary market, or particularly, let's say it's the customer having the RE generation facilities. So UCCC naman is on the carbon credit or reduction. So I guess for the compliance market, currently it is for the RPS, and the BREX maybe for other markets until such time that we have established the voluntary RE market. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Mai. For the next question, can we separate the capacity of a single facility into three kinds of energy certificates? It is possible only if there are three separate generating units. So that first generating unit, you can elect to generate one kind of energy certificate, for the others, separate energy certificates.
Yeah.
That is the only way that double counting will be avoided, and we remain true to the requirement that RE projects will only generate one kind of energy certificate. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Phil and Yusek Mai. Next question, please. Okay. What is the basis of categorizing an RE resource? Sorry. Is this a continuation of the question? Okay. Can the VREX be assigned and transferred directly to a RES and or an end users? And being voluntary or deregulated, kindly confirm if we can bundle the generation with VREX on our own discretion when we enter into wholesale and retail contracts with customers. With illustration. For illustration purposes, okay. RE plant has 100 megawatt contracted to SEPH RES. Can we get the 100 megawatt energy generation, and then 50% or 50 megawatt will be elected as RPS RECs? And then we will request the said RE plant to enter into a VPPA for 50 megawatt with our contestable end user, so that part will be converted to VREX. Thanks for clarifying.
Parang mas naguluhan ako dyan. Eric, I know you're here, no? So it depends, no? The REX attribution and yung provision of the based on the RPS is, or the rest, no, as a mandated participants, depends on the megawatt hour or megawatt contracted, no, with a particular uh, renewable energy plan. Um, so actually, it's the BPPA is as long as this is the virtual power supply agreement, ano. I think this has to be separately metered because the other contracting party will have to know also of the proposal. So it depends on your contract and should be separately metered so that volume can be determined as to the number of RECs generated.
Thank you, Yusek. And I think Sir Eric of Shell is here, and we allowed his mic. Should he have any clarification regarding his question?
Hello, Ma'am Mylene. And everyone. Good afternoon. Sorry for the question, ma'am, kasi we have ongoing projects. Pero it seems it's clear already from the previous explanation that we can only nominate a specific facility for a specific category. We cannot combine them, right? Okay. So with that, even if for example, we have a new plant that's coming in, and we decide not to use that for RPS but for VREX, then it can be done, right? So there's a new solar plant. Instead of joining the RPS, Shell as a residue of supplier will enter into a contract with that plant that we possibly co-own. And then from there, we will get those VREX and transfer that to our end users. Is that right, Mamali? It can be done
Yeah,
if
but
that's true.
Eric, I guess the retail electricity supplier is a mandated participant. So there is a annual minimum requirement for the entity to comply with the RPS requirements, which means that
Yes, ma'am.
RECs will have to be. So other than that, it can be in the voluntary market or
Yes, ma'am.
VREC.
As long as we can assure you na we have excess na. I mean, for example, we have entered into a plan na knowing that we can comply naman with our RPS requirement. So, sobrang na yun. So, gusto namin yung facility yun for VREX purposes na lang, ma'am. Kasi di ba, may mga multinational company who would like to get that REX directly from us. Pwede naman po, ma'am. In principle. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Eric and Yusek Mai. So unfortunately, because we are short of time, we can only accommodate one more question because we need to proceed with the next draft department circular. So the last question for this circular is to align with other international RE registries. Traders of RECs issued in PREMS should include other mandated participants with excess certificates over its RPS obligation requirements. May we recommend to define seller in the draft DCs to refer to a juridical person, Filipino or non-Filipino, duly registered or licensed to do business in the Philippines, an RE developer of qualified eligible RE projects as defined herein, or any mandated participant of their PREMs with excess RECs which offers directly or indirectly and enters into a VPPA with a buyer.
Okay, that is for the PPA policy. Maybe we can skip that and address it later after presentation of the PPA policy.
Yeah.
In the meantime, can we have one more question that relates to the energy certificates policy?
Yes, yes, attorney. Next, please. Also, that's the last question. Okay. Thank you. So again, we would like to note that all your questions, should you have any further questions, is being noted by our team and should be responded to should we create the matrix of responses po. Next, we'll proceed to the next part of our program. So moving on to our next presentation to the draft department circular guidelines on the virtual power purchase agreements, we have engineer Jonathan Teodosio of the Technical Services Management Division.
Thank you, King. Good afternoon po sa lahat. I'll be presenting the draft department circular on the guidelines of the Virtual Power Purchase Agreement or VPPA. So this draft department circular has 9 preliminary clauses and 12 sections. I'll start with the 9 whereas clauses, then later I'll discuss the 9 sections of the draft DC. The first whereas is about the EPIRA, which empowers the DOE to exercise supervision and control over all government activities relative to energy projects in order to attain the objectives set forth therein. The second whereas clause is referring to the RE Act of 2008 or the RE law, which declares as a policy of the state to increase the utilization of RE by institutionalizing the development of national and local capabilities in the use of RE systems and promoting its efficient and cost-effective commercial application by providing fiscal and non-fiscal incentives. Third whereas is about the NREP for planning period 2020 to 2040, which sets the aspirational target of attaining 35% RE share in the power generation mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040. To facilitate the attainment of the RE targets, Section 6 of the RE Act mandates all stakeholders in the power industry to contribute to the growth of RE industry in the country, directing for this purpose the NREB to set the minimum percentage of generation from eligible RE resources and determine which sector the RE portfolio standards shall be imposed on a per grid basis. Also, Section 8 of the RE Act mandates the establishment of the RE market to facilitate compliance with the RPES rules under Section 6. Pursuant to the cited sections of the RE Act, the DOE issued the RPES rules under Department Circular 2017-12-0015 titled Promulgating the Rules and Guidelines Governing the Establishment of the RE Portfolio Standards in On-Grid Areas. Under the RPES rules, it is prescribed that a REC shall represent all renewable and environmental attributes from 1 megawatt-hour of electricity generation sourced from facilities that utilize RE resources or RE technology, among others. The seventh whereas clause is about the declaration of the commercial operations of the RE market under Department Circular number DC 2024-12-0031. This allows the trading of RECs in the REM. The eighth whereas clause recognizes that RECs is a means to comply with clean energy targets such as the RE100 and net zero, and is a potential source of financing for the RE projects. Lastly, recognizing the above premises, the DOE recognized that there is a need to issue guidelines allowing RE developers to enter into financial arrangements for the transfer of RECs to businesses and industries in consideration of guaranteed payment for electricity. These are the premises. I'll discuss the sections under the draft department circular. Section 1 is the purpose. This circular sets forth the rules and guidelines for BPPA, as herein defined pursuant to the RE Act and policies and issuances related thereto. We have defined 13 terminologies under Section 2. The first one is the buyer, which refers to a corporation, partnership, association, or entity that purchases RECs through a VPPA with an RE developer. Compliance RECs refers to energy certificates generated from eligible RE facilities owned by electric power industry participants, which are mandated to comply with the RPS. 2.3, eligible RE facility refers to an RE facility located in the country that commenced commercial operations after the effectivity of the RE law and utilizes technologies and resources mentioned under Sections 10 and 11 of the RPS rules. The term shall include RE projects proposed to be installed and operated within the country, utilizing any of the technologies or resources as eligible RE facilities. The seller refers to a juridical person, Filipino or non-Filipino, duly registered or licensed to do business in the Philippines, an RE developer of qualified eligible RE projects as defined herein, which offers directly or indirectly and enters into a VPPA with the buyer. Section 2.5, market price, is the price in pesos per kilowatt hour at which the electricity generated from an RE project is sold through the WESN. Potential capacity is the aggregate expected maximum capacity of all generating unit of an RE project based on the result of resource assessment, grid capacity, and or engineering design. 2.7, the RE certificate or REC refers to a certificate issued by the RE registrar pursuant to the RPS on-grid rules or any amendments thereto, which represents all the RE and environmental attributes from 1 megawatt hour of electricity generation sourced from an eligible RE facility. The RE developer refers to an individual or juridical entity created, registered, and or authorized to operate in the Philippines in accordance with existing Philippine laws and engage in the exploration, development, and or utilization of RE resources and actual operation of RE project. It shall include existing entities engaged in the exploration, development, and or utilization of RE resources or the generation of electricity from RE resources or both. The RE service or operating contract or the RE contract is the service agreement between the government through the DOE and RE developer over a period in which the RE developer has the exclusive right to a particular RE area for exploration and development. 2.10 RE project refers to the power generation and related facilities utilizing RE resources under a particular RE contract issued by the DOE pursuant to the RE Act. The Virtual Power Purchase Agreement or VPPA refers to a private contract for the sale of voluntary RECs without regard to the physical delivery of electricity to the buyer. Section 2.12, voluntary RECs, refers to energy certificates generated from eligible RE facilities owned by electric power industry participants which are not mandated to comply with the RPS. Lastly, under Section 2 is the VPPA project. This refers to an eligible RE facility or project that is subject to a VPPA. The guiding principles for this VPPA circular are as follows. A VPPA is a private agreement for the sale of voluntary RECs between a seller that generates or will generate power from a VPPA project and to whom the corresponding voluntary RECs are or will be allocated under applicable rules and guidelines, and a buyer who is willing to acquire the said voluntary RECs for a fixed or variable price. For funding or financing purposes, a VPPA shall be recognized as a valid type of PPA for the assured offtake of the generated power from a VPPA project. Moreover, considering the direct correlation of voluntary RECs to the power generated, the guaranteed payment by the buyer for every voluntary REC attributed to the seller may serve as a financial guarantee. Section 3.3, the sale of electricity generated from the PPPA project shall be subject to applicable rules and regulations of the DOE, ERC, and other relevant agencies. Last, under Section 3, the voluntary RECs that are the subject of a duly executed VPPA may be automatically registered or transferred to the buyer by virtue of the VPPA, unless otherwise agreed upon by the parties. The buyer may transfer a valid voluntary REC in accordance with the relevant Philippine and international laws and policies. There are two qualified parties in this circular, the seller and the buyer. The seller is any juridical person, Filipino or non-Filipino, duly registered or licensed to do business in the Philippines, while the buyer is any juridical person duly registered or licensed to do business in its country of origin or in the Philippines. Under Section 5, the VPPA project is defined as follows. Projects for the generation of RE as defined in the RE law for areas within the Philippine territory may be a VPPA project. 5.2, only RE projects that will generate the voluntary RECs may qualify as a VPPA project, provided that RE projects accounted for in the RPS compliance of DUs and other MPs pursuant to the RPS rules that generate compliance RECs shall not be allowed as VPPA projects. Also, VPPA projects are RE projects that the seller is developing or plans to develop in accordance with the RE law and the corresponding omnibus RE guidelines. Lastly, in the selection of a VPPA project, the buyer and seller shall prioritize RE projects that are aligned with the Philippine Energy Plan. The nature of the VPPA are prescribed under Section 6. Private contract under VPPA is a contract between the buyer and the seller. The consideration and stipulations in the VPPA are binding between the parties, subject to the applicable laws of the Philippines, including the RE Act. 6.2, situs for legal and tax purposes, the situs of a VPPA for VPPA projects as defined under the circular is in the Philippines. 6.3, the terms of a VPPA, including the agreed price of the voluntary REC, shall not be subject to review and regulation by the ERC and DOE unless otherwise specified in this circular. 6.4, in a VPPA, the seller offers the voluntary RECs to the buyer in consideration for an agreed fixed price to be paid by the buyer to the seller. 6.5, A duly executed VPPA that specifies the mechanism for an assured compensation for the voluntary RECs generated from a VPPA project can be used by the parties for financing and funding requirements for the VPPA project with banks, investors, and other financial institutions. Lastly, under Section 6, voluntary RECs attributed to a VPPA project may be sold, assigned, or transferred by the seller to the buyer through a valid and binding VPPA. The elements of the VPPA are under Section 7. Financial contract is a transaction wherein the seller sells or transfers the voluntary RECs from its VPPA project in exchange for a fixed price. 7.2, there is no obligation on the part of the seller to deliver the power generated by the VPPA project to the buyer in a VPPA. However, the seller shall generate and sell the electricity through WESM or any other market, platform, or agreement in accordance with the rules and regulations set forth by the DOE, ERC, and other relevant agencies. 7.3, the seller shall be responsible for the generation of power in accordance with the standards and requirements under the PIRA and related rules and regulations. 7.4, the buyer may enter into VPPA contracts with one or more sellers or for one or more VPPA projects. 7.5, no double counting. The seller may enter into one or more VPPA contracts for the same VPPA project, provided that, to prevent double counting of voluntary RECs attribution, the seller is not allowed to sell or transfer the same voluntary REC to more than one buyer. 7.6, the parties may settle the payments through a manner and currency allowed by the BSP and Philippine laws. If settlement will be in foreign currency, the exchange rate prevailing at the time of sale through the WESM or other markets shall prevail. 7.7, valuation of voluntary RECs. The price of the voluntary RECs that the buyer pays to the seller shall be in accordance with the stipulations of the BPPA. The valuation of the voluntary RECs in relation to the electricity generated by the seller may be determined through the existing domestic and international standards. Absent any duly issued policies on valuation of voluntary RECs by the DOE, one voluntary REC shall be issued for every 1 megawatt hour of electricity generated. (7.8) The term for the sale of voluntary RECs under the BPPA shall be a minimum of 10 years, reckoned from the date of commercial operations, and may be renewed based on the conditions set forth in the VPPA. 7.9, representation and warranties. Parties to the VPPA shall warrant that A, all persons involved in the offer, negotiation, and execution of the BPPA and other intermediaries acted in accordance with applicable laws, rules, and regulations, including those relating to securities, and B, they are compliant with all requirements and regulations for the voluntary RECs registration and trading. The seller further warrants that the VPPA project has or will have a valid RE contract and the mandatory authorizations and permits from the relevant agencies and offices. Lastly, under Section 7, upon submission by the parties of the BPPA to the RE Registrar, the RE Registrar shall transfer the voluntary RECs to the buyer in accordance with the VPPA contract. Applicable laws and disputes. 8.1 Rules on securities. VPPAs executed by a buyer and seller without the participation of brokers, banks, investment companies, and other similar intermediaries shall not be considered as securities under RA number 8799 or the Securities Regulation Code. 8.2 If a BPPA was executed involving persons that offer, sell, negotiate, deliver, or otherwise represent either the buyer or seller with a view to the execution of the BPPA and other intermediaries, the parties to a BPPA, including the said person, shall comply with applicable rules and regulations of the SEC and the BSP. 8.3 The VPPA shall be governed by the Philippine laws such as the RE Act, EPIRA, including rules and regulations such as WESM rules, the RPS rules as amended. 8.4 All disputes under the VPPA shall be settled in courts of the Philippines to the exclusion of other courts. Lastly, arbitration. That arbitration clauses where the seat of arbitration is in the Philippines shall be allowed. Sections 9, 10, and 11, and 12 refers to the regulatory separability, repealing, and effectivity clauses of the circular. Thank you, and good afternoon. Yes.
Thank you, Engineer Jojo. So remaining as our panelists, we have again our Undersecretary Maylin C. Capongcol, Director Marisa P. Cerezo, and of course Attorney Fillmore C. Amor, and other officials of the DOE. So please let's proceed to the question. The question earlier, no? Yes.
We will consider the proposed revision on the definition of seller. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney, yes, next please. So as a general comment, the draft department circular focuses solely on the purchase of renewable energy certificates, separate from the purchase of electricity. The term virtual power purchase agreement may cause confusion as it implies acquisition of physical power or suggests technical concepts like a virtual power plant. To ensure clarity and accuracy, we recommend revising the title and references to Voluntary Rec Purchase Agreement, VRPA, or Virtual Renewable Energy Certificate Purchase Agreement, or VRECPA, which better reflects the intent of the policy.
We will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. So on section 7.8, clarification on whether the prescribed 10-year term refers to the banking of voluntary RECs or to the duration of the VPPA itself, and the rationale for imposing such a requirement. To ensure flexibility and reflect the private nature of these agreements, suggest removing the minimum term and instead allowing the buyer and seller to mutually determine the contract duration.
Thank you. The minimum term refers to the duration of the VPPA. The rationale is to enable RE developers to leverage the VPPA as a financing instrument. If we leave it up to the parties to define the term of the VPPA, it may be difficult for the RE developer to procure a VPPA whose term is acceptable to financing institution. Hence, the minimum term requirement of 10 years.
Thank you, Attorney, for the clarification. And next is another general comment, or maybe clarify the intent of the draft DC. Is the intention to establish a VPPA policy or just a sale of RECs in the voluntary market? We also suggest the RE projects not be limited to a VPPA project if it does not have a contract with any distribution utility or mandated participant for their RPS requirement.
The intent of the circular is to enable RE developers to have additional avenues for financing. The sale of RECs through a BPPA agreement is one avenue other than the bilateral contracts, the JF, and other programs of the government. RE projects not limited to a BPPA project. It does not have a contract. The term VPPA project is defined based on the, how do I say it? A VPPA project is one covered by a VPPA agreement. A VPPA project is not determined as to whether it is covered by a contract with any BU or mandated participant. The definition only says a VPPA project is one subject of a VPPA. An RE project can be subject of a VPPA and therefore become a VPPA project if it utilizes RE, it is covered by an RE service or operating contract. Since the buyer of the electricity is distinct and separate from the buyer of the voluntary REC, a VPPA project can be sold, the electricity generated from a VPPA project can be sold to the market or any other arrangement allowed under existing rules of the DOE, while the RECs generated from the electricity supplied to the market will be sold to the buyer under the VPPA.
Attorney Fiel?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, allow me to to clarify the intent of the BPPA. This is only to address the requirement of those commercial and industrial consumers or any entity wishing to have or have a sustainability goal for their compliance with their targets, the environment attributes target. So the concept of virtual power purchase agreement is that that is duly licensed and awarded by the Department of Energy of an RE contract will enter into a virtual power supply agreement with an end user. So that end user and the RE developer, essentially one of the design is to have a contract for difference. There is a strike price that they will enter into, which will be the basis whether the customer will pay or be refunded from that purchase of the BPPA agreement. So the power plant will be a merchant, no, a plant which should be operating in the market. So we know that there is prices, market clearing prices in the spot market. So that is essentially the basis for the contract for difference. So uh, the RE developer gets its revenue from the sale of in the market, and then depending on the market price. So there is a what we call contract for difference. The the agreement between the RE developer and the consumer who will put up the RE facility will be subject to their respective uh, agreement, no, or terms, no. And as mentioned by Attorney Fiel, this is to also to help the RE developers put up its an RE facility intended solely for that project. So that's the basic premise of a BPPA. Now we are also reviewing whether or not there will be a possibility that the consumer can buy, no, given the retail contestability in the market. So there might be a possibility that there will be an equivalent energy that can be part of the BPPA contract. So yon, thank you.
Attorney Fiel.
Yan ang muna natin.
Eric, Eric, ikaw na naman. Sige,
Ah,
Eric.
yes po.
Sige, ano.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Sorry baka you can hear the rain. Ma'am, related na rin sa question ko kanina. So, can we broker that as the rest of that end user? So, kami na lang mag-enter ng VPPA on behalf of the end user. Tapos, di ba sa VREM, pwede yung Genco ita-transfer yung VREX sa amin. Tapos kami na magta-transfer sa account ng customer. Or baka parang IREX, merong sub-account na pwedeng under us. Pwede na mai-transfer sa customer na yun. Thanks, ma'am.
We'll check, no, yung proposal mo, Eric, kasi medyo complicated yung arrangement. Essentially, the PPPA is a one-on-one contract, no, between
Yes,
an
ma'am, I
RE
did. Opo.
developer and an end user. Now,
End user.
regardless of what the consumer will do with the REX, kasi yung BPPA, nakakontrata na yan doon sa consumer. So, yung REX kanya na yun, sa consumer na yun. And yung basic objective of the BPPA is for the consumer to have that REX, no, in his possession. Thank you. Or ownership.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks.
Thank you, Yusek Maylene and Sir Eric. Let's proceed to the next question, please. So on section 3.1, this does not settle potential attribution conflicts that may arise when multiple parties, like generator, off-taker, aggregator, claim ownership of the same REC. In practice, this gap can cause disputes that delay recognition of RECs in the DOE registry and undermine the credibility of the VPPA framework. It is recommended to insert a clarificatory rule that default ownership remains with the RE generator unless otherwise assigned under a DOE registered contract.
Well, under the BPPA framework, generally it's the RE generator who owns the REC. However, having that BPPA contract with an electricity end user essentially transfer that REC's ownership to the electricity consumer. So we don't see any gaps or any conflicts in the ownership of the RECs.
Okay.
Thank
If I may
you.
add, Yusek May, in the energy certificates policy, there is a section there that says that deals with unbundling of electricity from energy certificates. That will coincide with the attribution of RECs under the VPPA. So if the energy certificates generated from electricity produced and delivered is unbundled uh, from the RECs that it generates, then no attribution conflicts will arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fiel and Yusef Maylin. Next question, please. Section 2.4. For clarification on how RECs will be transferred or allocated, especially in case of an indirect offer, which we understand will contemplate a scenario where buyer enters into a VPPA with seller. However, buyer will transfer the RECs subject of VPPA to another person or entity.
The RECs will be, it depends on the agreement under the VPPA. But the default is the seller will nominate, in effect, the buyer to the RE registrar by submitting a copy of the VPPA to the RE registrar, so that the registrar may then transfer the RECs generated under the VPPA to the buyer. If the buyer will then transfer the RECs to another entity, that will have to be notified to the RE registrar for proper recording and tracking. But that is not, under the current draft, prohibited by the circular.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Fiel. Someone raised their hand po.
Rachel, please.
If you wish to speak po, kindly raise your hand again so we can recognize you po. Okay, so maybe the concern was clarified na. So let's proceed to the next question. So we understand that Section 8 of the current draft Department Circular on the Guidelines on Energy Certificates delineates renewable energy certificates between compliance RECs and voluntary RECs. We seek the department's clarification if mandated participants is only limited to compliance RECs to comply with its RPS requirement. Alternatively, does this draft DC allow mandated participants to comply with its RPS requirements using voluntary RECs as well?
Our current direction from DOE management is that voluntary RECs and compliance RECs are treated separately, such that voluntary RECs cannot be used for RPS compliance. Note, in the energy certificates policy, voluntary RECs can be generated from legacy projects if we allow a cross compliance, meaning you use voluntary RECs for RPS compliance. It will be difficult to track which voluntary RECs were generated from eligible RPS facilities and which of those voluntary RECs are generated from non-RPS eligible RE facilities. So to simplify, compliance RECs will be used for RPS compliance. Voluntary RECs will be used as an additional source of revenue for RE developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Phil, for the clarification. Next question, please. That's all the questions po. Okay.
Raised hand.
Yes, from someone is raising their hand po. Yes, you are recognized. Your mic is enabled. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a follow-up question. May I kindly clarify how our voluntary RECs will be used if not for RPS compliance? So
I'm sorry,
we
what's
can-
your name po and affiliation?
Sorry, I'm Genevieve Porrellores from Meralco.
Thank you.
Voluntary REX is for additional source of revenue for RE development. From the point of view of the RE developer, from the point of view of the buyer of the voluntary REX, it can be used for compliance with voluntary targets such as RE100 and other voluntary clean energy compliance.
May I just an additional question. So not for RPS compliance because the signal is not quite good. It's not for RPS compliance, but for other targets like RE100. Is that correct?
Yes.
RE100
So
and
from the
other.
viewpoint, that is from the point of view of the buyer.
Yes, as a buyer, it will be
Yes.
used for. Sorry, may I again clarify? As a buyer, it will be used for.
Um,
Yeah, as a buyer,
achievement
ito
of voluntary targets.
yung buyers ng electricity or buyers nung REC, no, yung voluntary REC, like what cited by Attorney Fiel, like yung PHR RE100, ito ay yung kanilang compliance, no, with their sustainability target. So on their own, like net zero or whatever environment or sustainable target they have. Yun yung use nila ng voluntary RECs. Yung difference with the compliance REC, ito yung strictly for mandated. But our mandated participants can also buy voluntary RECs, no? But we will be defining that further when we develop when we finalize the policies and framework of the voluntary RE market in the Philippines.
Thank you po, Yusek and Attorney Fiel and Ma'am. So there's still more hands raised po. So we'll ask you depending on the order po that you raised your hands. So we'll allow your mic po. Sino po si MP? Please. Okay po, please. Ma'am Melanie from PESA. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon po, Yusek Mai.
Dating doon.
Opo.
Ay, dating dito. Dating dito yan, dating dito.
Opo.
Sige, Mel.
Yusek Mai, yung ano po namin, kung yung BPPA po ay mas maging preferred option ng mga industrial customers, yung aming pong mga locators, with sustainability targets. Kasi most of them, ang habol lang naman nila ay magkaroon ng RECs.
Yes.
So, how it will affect the GEOP program?
Iba naman yung sa GEOP kasi ito parang you're directly contracting an RE developer to build plant or to put up an RE plant solely for operating as a merchant plant in the market, entering into contract for difference with the locators, no, for example in Ecozone for
Yes
the
po.
RECs, no, yun yung ano nun. Yung GEOP kasi is through RE supplier, but we're also in the process of amending the green energy option program. Kaya itatagni-tagni namin to lahat ng issuances na we're proposing or we're subjected to public consultation.
Okay po. So, hintay na lang po namin yung amendment. Opo.
Yes.
Thank you po, Yusek.
Regards.
Thank you po, Yusek Mai and Miss Melanie from PESA. Next po is Sir Eric, please.
Hi, Yusek Mai, and hello, Miss Melanie. I know you as well. I hope you remember me. But going back, Miss Mai, is it right? Pwede pong mag-trade yung mga voluntary customer sa VREM, di ba? Kunwari na nabigay sa kanila yung VREX, then pwede rin, kunwari si Coke, tapos papasok niya kay Google, tapos si Google ito-trade niya rin kay Apple, or tapos si Apple pwede yung i-trade back kay Shell Energy. Pwede yun, ma'am, di ba? Okay.
Pwede yun. Pero yun yung mga kailangan ng strict monitoring and avoidance of double dipping or double counting.
Pag ganun, ma'am, baka
May
gagawin nyo.
single registry tayong tinitingnan dyan so that yung attributions and tagging of all the the recs
Okay.
will be undertaken.
So na-envision nyo dun, man, baka si Shell Energy na registered siya sa mandated na REM, sa compliance REM. Tapos meron siyang separate registration sa voluntary REM. Pwedeng ganun para lang mahiwala yung baskets. Tama po ba yung idea?
Essentially kasi the BREM talks about consumer essentially having generated their own renewable energy certificate or having put up an RE plant ganun
Okay.
like yung
Pero I hope nothing stops naman anyone to register like si Shell kunwari separately for that purpose. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So binubuo pa namin Eric yung policy framework. Ngayon inaaral pa lang lahat nung we're still scanning the existing policies and structure nung with regards to Renewable Energy Act and then the commitment with the NDC and
Okay.
and
Thank you, ma'am.
others.
Very nice po. Salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Eric. And again, Yusek Mai. So next po, do you still have anyone who has concerns po? Okay. All right. Thank you. So again, that is our panelists for the department circular on the VPPA. And to formally close today's session, on behalf of our Director Marisa P. Cerezo, let us hear from the OIC Division Chief of the Geothermal Energy Management Division, Sir Rainier M. Halcon.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. So in behalf of Attorney Marisa P. Cerezo, let me read her closing message for everyone. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. On behalf of the Department of Energy, I would like to extend our appreciation to all stakeholders who took the time to participate in this public consultation on the drafts department circulars for virtual power purchase agreements and energy certificates. Your contributions today are highly valuable as we work towards refining these guidelines. The discussions and recommendations you have shared will help ensure that the policies we put forward are not only aligned with the objectives of the PEP and the NREP, but are also practical, transparent, and responsive to the needs of our energy stakeholders. We acknowledge that these draft circulars will play an important role in advancing our e-development in the country. The proposed PPA framework will provide a market mechanism through a private contract for the sale of voluntary RECs to directly support electric power industry participants which are not mandated to comply with the RPS, while the energy certificates will allow for a clear, transparent, and credible system for trading of clean energy attributes, both of which are critical in strengthening consumer choice, transparency, and compliance with our clean energy goals. As we move forward, the department remains committed to an inclusive and consultative process in policy making. Rest assured, the inputs raised here will be carefully evaluated and integrated into the final issuance. Maraming salamat po, and we look forward to your continued partnership as we collectively work towards a secure, sustainable, and affordable energy future for our nation. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Yes po, again, we are grateful for your everyone's attendance in today's public consultation. We hope to see you all in the next activities of the DOE. Again, thank you and please stay safe.
Hanggang kailan sila pwede mag-comment?
Hanggang Friday.
We'll give you until next Friday po should you wish to send additional comments to these.
Hindi. Hanggang bukas.
Tomorrow Friday. Yeah, tomorrow Friday. We'll give you until tomorrow to please provide your additional comments. And yes po, Yusek, baka po may additional po kayo.
Ada wala na, so we take note of all the comments, and yung additional comments and clarification that we will be receiving, we will be addressing that. Thank you.
Thank you po, Yusek Mai. Again, everyone, maraming salamat po. And then again, for your comments until tomorrow. Thank you po and stay safe.
Yes. Naka-off na. Naka-off na.
Opo.